te koute Adlin Seid qui couchait sous cabane l'hôpital.
Comment
I parlé him out there.
Donc comment est
And
Comment est
Adlin,
Adlin Comment sens-tu Sortez game. Qui sortez game? Parlez plus fort.
These three people here, these are three zombies. These bottles here, each one of these bottles has one. Wherever I decide to send them, whether it's New York, they go. Whether it's Venezuela, they go. Whatever message they have, I give them the address and they carry it out. There's two types of zombification in Haitian culture. Now, the first I want to start off with is more of the scientific, and this one falls into the line of poison. As you see in the first video, you see a guy that's laying on a bed in the hospital. His speech is impaired. He's not making any sense. He's basically belligerent. This person is a victim of what people would call zombification or zombification. How he received it, many believe it was through food, something that he ate. And when he ingested it, hours later, he fell ill. And then they claim that he ended up dying. And what happened was they buried him, and the people found him walking in the cemetery. I believe also there was someone that came to dig his body up. But they found him walking in the cemetery, and this is how they saved him, and they brought him to the hospital. Now, this phase of zombification, this is more scientific, and from my opinion, it's not really the true zombification, because this is more of poison. This is not nothing where the word zombie comes from. This is more of, in a sense, a form to neutralize someone. It's not really to cause death. It's there to neutralize someone, to make them immobile. A lot of these people, when you see them, they're not in their right frame of mind. They're disoriented. This is more of like a delirium. They're in a delirious state. They can't tell the difference between what is real or what is, not real. They're in suspended animation. And whomever is in their presence has all control over these people. Usually, the best way I can describe it is like a person leaning on heroin. When a person is on heroin, they're leaning over and slumped, but it's not like that. What you find, a person who has been hit with that type of poison, they're usually in a numb-like state. They're here, but their movements are very fucking slow. I don't know what drug I can use to explain that, but it's more of, it's a downer effect that cripples a person's, mental capacity. It cripples their movements, and it just makes them immobile. Again, this phase is more to neutralize neutralize a target or an individual. There's definitely a process, with that, a very dangerous process, that guys usually follow when going through this, But again, this is phase 1. Now, you see in the second part of the video, and I'm going to move now to phase 2, or the second form of zombification. And I would say this is more of the truer origin of the latter. Because when you look at zombie comes from in Zambia, which means spirit, you know, but in Haiti, when we say zombie, it can mean various things. But in this phase, which I'm about to explain here, this one gives you the origin of the first form of zombification. Now, this one is more of in spirit form. Now we're talking about what the paleros call the muerto. Now, for us, the zombie is pretty much the soul of the dead that a person sends to a target. And what begins to happen is that, well, I'll say this. Before I even move forward, this phase is not like the first phase. When someone sends a zombie in this form, in this second form, this is usually to cause death. Because what happens is that the person will exhibit similar signs to the first, but because the first is a drug compound, it's more evident. Where per se, the latter is very subtle. But if you pay attention, it's more of like if you're a drug dealer and you know how to look at the signs of someone who has abused drugs, you can kind of tell. You know, like basically a person who's shooting up heroin. You know, you can tell by, okay, the looks of their eyes, or you can look at their hands is bloodshot red, you know, or things like that. Or you can look at the tracks on their arm. But sometimes it's not even, sometimes, you know, some of these people don't even have tracks on their arms. But there's certain signs, the way the eyes look, you know, when you start seeing the meat on their face begin to dissolve and you start to see more of their bones beginning to protrude. These are things that some people don't even notice. But when you are experienced with looking at things, you will begin to see. And this is how it is with the second part of the person who is zombified. What happens in this is that the zombie, or the soul of the dead, or the muerto, attaches to the living human being's energy. And what it begins to do is rob the person's body of vitality. You know, so you have someone that is in good health. What begins to happen within the next couple of months down the line is that you begin to see a change. The person begins to get very slouchful. You know, the person begins to have problems sleeping at night. They begin to feel pain throughout their body. Sometimes their face swells up, it blows up. Sometimes these people become pale as all hell if they're light skinned. Sometimes their skin, they begin to lose a lot of weight. They begin to get skinny. And it's as though their body is being sucked of all the air the body is being sucked of all the nutrients. And this is usually why some people begin to have this image as if they're sickly. Sometimes people confuse these people with drug addicts. Sometimes some people wonder, yo, have you been using drugs or something like that? You know, or, have you been drinking alcohol? Because these people usually look discombobulated. They're definitely zoned out. You know, they're zoned out. It's like the first phase. You know, it's like the first phase, but it's slightly different because the first phase is more of extreme. This one is more subtle. You know, it's not evident, but what becomes evident is the illnesses that they begin to suffer. Because now, as you begin to see the manifestation of this weakening their energy, you begin to see their body begins to shut down. So different organs begin to shut down. Sometimes some people lose sight. Sometimes people's hair fall out. Sometimes their cells begin to mutate into different, it begins to mutate into cancer cells. Sometimes these people end up dying of cancer. Sometimes these people even end up dying of AIDS. Their body becomes so eroded that it manifests into an illness that doctors sometimes they'll label as whatever, but in reality, it's not really that. It's the spirit that's breaking their body down. So the doctors, they think that's what it is. And they say, oh, this person died of AIDS. And sometimes you'll find in a situation where sometimes you'll find a situation where a person may go to the doctor and the doctor doesn't know what's wrong with them. No matter what the doctor does, they don't know what the fuck is going on. So I say this. It's almost like this. There was a client of mine who had a daughter a long time, a daughter who passed away. Now, the thing about the daughter was that when she was 12 years old, a lady said something to her mother. Well, the mothers had a child with this guy, and a guy had a child from that woman. But the mother, which is my client, her daughter was very beautiful, and people always compliment her daughter. So the other baby mother got jealous and said, you think those looks are going to last very long on your daughter? A month later, she ends up falling sick. And what happened was she was 13 or so, whatsoever at that age. And what happened was throughout her age, from 13 to 30, into her 30s, I think she died at 32 or something like that. She was plagued with an illness that the doctors did not know what to do. Like she'd go to doctors and doctors would say, ma'am, we can't help you with this. We're sorry, but we've tried to do anything. We tried to do everything we could, but we can't help you. So they basically said, what we can do is prescribe medication to help with the pain that she's feeling, but the doctors couldn't help her. Eventually, she ended up dying in her 30s. So therefore, this is the thing about this phase of zombification, is that this ladder, which is spiritual, when it links to the person, it doesn't go away. Only way it can be broken is if the person who put it on the person takes it off the person, or else that person is eventually going to die. So if you're a palero, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When that muerto latches on to that person, it begins to suck them dry. And eventually, they begin to erode and they eventually die. So I want to clear this thing up, because when people talk about zombification, zombification, this and that, a lot of people, they just hear things. They read a bunch of books. They're not in the field. They just make these hypotheses because of what they read in books. This is more complicated than what most people think. I read this book and I know what it is. If you're not in the field, you can't speak on this shit. So again, there's two types of zombification in Haitian Creole. Again, as I'm gonna say this again for my Haitians out there. If you've seen the movie by Godnel Latisse, I recommend that you watch that movie. I'm sorry for the American audience, because that video would have been great if y'all could see it. But unfortunately, it's in English, But for the Haitian audience, I would recommend that you go see that movie. It's on YouTube. It's called Maclot by Godnel Latisse. Again, the name is Maclot, and it'll take you to the phase of the second part of the second form of zombie that I basically mentioned in this video. So with that said, I conclude this video. Thank you guys for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. I'm out.